It was the kind of night that never seemed to end, cold, silent, and oppressive. The air in the hospital was thick with a strange stillness, but if you listened hard enough, you could hear something else. A quiet, shuffling sound echoed through the walls. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but then I saw it, a fleeting shadow at the end of the hallway. I had been a nurse at St. Jude's Hospital for nearly 3 years, but tonight, something felt different. Something was off. My name is Ryan Miller, and I've seen a lot working in the emergency ward. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. You see, this isn't some ghost story you hear around a campfire. This is real. I wish it weren't, but the truth is, there are things in this hospital that no one talks about. Things that can't be explained, but I'm here to try. And I need you to believe me. It all started around 2:15 a.m. The halls were deserted, as they usually are during the graveyard shift. The only sound was the faint beeping of heart monitors and the occasional muffled footsteps of other night staff. I had just finished checking on Mr. Thompson, an elderly man who had been in the ICU for weeks after a stroke. His condition was stable, but his eyes were always wide open, unblinking, like he was staring into the void. Something in his gaze unsettled me. I turned the corner near the old wing of the hospital, an area that hadn't been used in years. I had never worked there before, but there were rumors. There were always rumors. Some said it was haunted. Others claimed it was a place where patients had disappeared without a trace. People spoke in hushed tones when they mentioned it. As I passed by the closed door of the ward, I felt the temperature drop. The air turned heavy, almost suffocating. Then it happened. I heard a faint sound coming from behind that door, scraping like nails on concrete. I froze. Every hair on the back of my neck stood up. My heart began to race, but I forced myself to move. I had to check. My duty was to ensure everything was fine. I pushed open the door slowly, not sure of what I would find. Inside, the lights flickered as I stepped into the dim room. There was nothing there, at least that's what I thought at first. But as I scanned the room, my eyes landed on something unexpected. A hospital bed, tucked in the far corner, was rocking gently back and forth. The bed was empty, but the sound, it kept going. The scraping. It was coming from under the bed. I couldn't move. My mind screamed at me to run, but my legs refused to obey. Suddenly, the scraping stopped. In that instant, I heard a low, guttural growl. Something was there, and it wasn't human. I don't know what happened next. I'm not sure if I passed out or if I just ran, but when I came to my senses, I was back at the nurse's station, gasping for air, my heart pounding so loudly in my chest that it felt like the walls were shaking. But that wasn't the end of it. Oh no, it was just the beginning. I didn't talk to anyone about what had happened. How could I? Who would believe me? Besides, everyone knew that St. Jude's had its share of strange occurrences. The patients, the whispers, the strange, unexplained noises that echoed in the hallways. Some things were better left unspoken. But that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me, something was watching. The next night, my shift started off as usual. I tried to push the memory of the old wing out of my mind. I wasn't about to let my fear control me. But as the hours passed, a sense of dread crept over me like an invisible fog. The hospital was unusually quiet, even for the late hours. Not a single patient had called for assistance, and there were no new admissions. It was like the building itself was holding its breath. Around 3 a.m., I received a call from the ICU. One of the patients, Mr. Thompson, had gone into cardiac arrest. My stomach churned. I ran down the hallway, praying it was a false alarm. I reached his room and saw the staff frantically trying to revive him. His heart monitor was flatlined. "Clear!" one of the nurses shouted as they shocked him, but the screen remained still. Then, for just a second, I saw someone, standing in the corner of the room, a figure, cloaked in shadows, completely still. I turned to look at it, but when I blinked, it was gone. The room grew colder. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something wasn't right. The nurse beside me, Kate, noticed my strange expression and gave me a puzzled look. "You all right, Ryan?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. But I didn't answer. Couldn't. I kept my eyes locked on the corner where I had seen the figure. Nothing. Just the dim light from the heart monitors casting long shadows on the walls. Kate shook her head and returned to helping the others. Minutes passed, but Mr. Thompson didn't make it. His death wasn't surprising. We had all expected it. But there was something about his passing that felt different. When the room quieted, I caught a glimpse of his hand still gripping the edge of his blanket. It was cold, unnaturally cold. I went over to adjust it, but as I reached out, I saw something that made my blood run cold. His fingers weren't relaxed. They were curled. Tightly. I yanked my hand back. This wasn't right. He was dead. I knew he was. I'd checked. His pulse, his temperature, everything. But there was something wrong about the way he was lying there now. As I stared at Mr. Thompson, I heard it again, the faint scratching noise. This time, it wasn't coming from the old wing, but from inside the room. It was coming from the bed. I couldn't take it anymore. I backed away, my heart racing, my breath shallow. I had to get out. I ran from the room, down the corridor, through the ICU, not stopping until I reached the nurse's station. My head was spinning and my vision blurred. I had never felt so terrified. Kate found me a few minutes later, looking confused and concerned. "Ryan, what the hell's going on?" she asked, her voice tight. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't even begin to. But then she looked over at the security monitors and froze. The cameras, there was something moving. Something dark, shifting in the corner of the ICU. It wasn't a person, not even a shadow. It was something far worse. "I swear to God, Kate," I whispered, barely able to breathe. "That thing, it's not human." She didn't respond. She just stared at the monitor. I didn't know what I expected her to say. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. But I knew one thing for sure. Something in that hospital was not only alive, but it was hunting. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the hospital was closing in on me, suffocating me with its darkness. The cold spots, the unexplained noises, the shadows that seemed to linger longer than they should, it all felt wrong. But I tried to push through. I couldn't let my mind get the best of me. I had a job to do. I had to focus on the patients, on my duties. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, something followed me. I felt it every time I walked down a hallway, every time I entered a room. It was there, lurking. That same feeling returned during my next shift when I was assigned to the surgical wing. The air was dense, heavy with the smell of antiseptic and the quiet hum of the ventilation system. But it wasn't the sterile, clinical scent that unsettled me. It was the sound. A soft, muffled crying echoing from one of the recovery rooms. I checked the schedule, but no one was supposed to be in that room. All the post-op patients had already been discharged. I told myself it was just my nerves, that maybe it was the pipes or the wind. But the sound, it was so real. It was unmistakable. Someone was crying. I couldn't ignore it. I followed the sound to the end of the hallway and stopped in front of the door. The crying grew louder, but I couldn't see anything inside. The room was dark, the lights dim and flickering, but I could hear the sobbing unmistakably. It was low and strained, like someone in pain. I pushed the door open, my breath caught in my throat. There was a woman lying on the bed. She had dark hair, her face obscured by her hands, but she was sobbing uncontrollably. I had never seen her before. She wasn't on the list of patients, and I had no idea who she was. "Are you all right?" I asked, my voice shaky as I stepped closer. She didn't respond. Her sobs only grew louder. Something in her cry sounded wrong. It was guttural, almost like a growl mixed with desperation. I hesitated, but then something compelled me to step closer. As I reached out to touch her shoulder, she stopped crying. The room went deathly still. I froze. I should have left. I should have turned around and walked out, but I couldn't. Something inside me, something dark, kept me there. And then she slowly lifted her head. Her face was pale, almost translucent, with dark veins running underneath her skin. Her eyes, black as coal, locked onto mine, sending a chill down my spine. There was no warmth, no humanity in them. Just an endless, hollow void. "Get out," she whispered in a voice that sounded like 1,000 whispers all at once. It wasn't a warning. It was a command. I felt the temperature drop even further, the air thickening with a presence I couldn't explain. A cold, malevolent force surrounded me and my heart began to race. The room seemed to close in on me. Her lips twisted into a sickening smile as she leaned forward, and that's when I saw it, her hands. They were wrong. Her fingers were too long, unnaturally so, and the nails were sharp, like claws. "Leave," she repeated, her voice now dripping with malice. Without thinking, I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. My legs moved faster than I ever thought possible. But the farther I ran, the more I felt like something was following me, always just behind me. I reached the nurse's station, gasping for breath, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Kate was there again, looking at me like I had lost my mind. I didn't care. I had to tell her. I had to warn someone. "Kate, we're not alone in this place," I gasped. "There's something here. Something not human." My voice cracked with the terror that was bubbling up inside me. She gave me a long, skeptical look, but before she could say anything, the lights flickered. And that's when we both heard it, the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and echoing through the hallway. I glanced at Kate, and in her eyes, I saw the same fear that had taken root in mine. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just the isolation of the night. There was something here. Something ancient and evil, something that lived in the shadows of St. Jude's Hospital. Something that would not let us leave. I don't know how much longer I could last at St. Jude's. The hospital had become a labyrinth of fear and confusion, every hallway filled with dark corners, shadows that seemed to move when I wasn't looking, and a sense of being constantly watched. I kept telling myself I had to stay strong, that I couldn't let whatever was happening consume me. But every night, it felt like it was getting worse. That night, the fear weighed heavier on me than ever before. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was hunting me. I could hear whispers, faint and unintelligible, echoing through the sterile hallways, but every time I tried to listen closely, they stopped. It was as though they knew I was listening, waiting for me to let my guard down. I was working in the emergency ward, which had its own sense of isolation, especially at night. The only light came from the overhead fluorescents, their buzzing filling the silence. But that night, the buzzing seemed different, more oppressive. The room felt colder, as if the lights were doing their best to keep the dark at bay, but were losing the battle. I was checking on a new patient, a young woman named Emily, who had been brought in after a car accident. She was in critical condition but stable for the time being. As I stood by her bed, checking her vitals, I heard it again, the whispering. This time it was clearer. The words were soft at first, like a distant conversation, but they quickly grew louder, and they were coming from inside the room. I turned, heart pounding, but the room was empty. Emily was unconscious, her breathing steady, her face pale. But the whispers, they were real. I could feel them in my chest, like someone was speaking directly to me. "Ryan, Ryan." I felt my skin prickle. I took a step back, trying to keep my composure. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Is someone there?" No answer. Just the sound of my breath and the steady beep of Emily's heart monitor. Then I saw it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure standing just beyond the doorway, a shadow shifting in the dim light. It wasn't a person. It was something else. Its shape was contorted, elongated, like it was trying to fit in the space but couldn't quite make it. The air around it shimmered like heat rising off pavement in the summer. I didn't move. I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the sight, my breath caught in my throat. The shadow shifted again, its movement unnatural, like it was crawling on the walls. And then it turned. Its face was featureless, just an expanse of black, but I could feel it looking at me. I could feel it, and that feeling, it was pure dread. I had to get out. I had to leave this room, leave this hospital. But my legs wouldn't move. My body wouldn't respond. Suddenly, a shrill scream pierced the silence. It was Emily. Her eyes shot open, wide and unblinking, but they were no longer human. They were black, just like the figure in the doorway, and they seemed to pull me in, dragging me toward her. She thrashed in her bed, her body twisting in unnatural ways, as if something inside her was fighting to get out. "Ryan, run." Her voice, no, it wasn't her voice anymore. It was that same low, guttural tone I had heard before, in the old wing of the hospital. The voice of the thing I had seen in the ICU. It wasn't human. It was something ancient, something far worse. I stumbled backward, my feet finally finding their way to the floor, and I ran. I ran through the hallways, ignoring the shouts of nurses, the sounds of doors slamming behind me, the flickering lights that now seemed to pulse with every step. It was like the hospital was alive, chasing me, urging me to stay. But I couldn't stay. I had to get out. I reached the elevator. My hand shook as I pressed the button. The doors opened and I stepped inside, my heart racing, my breath coming in short gasps. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see that dark figure, that thing, waiting for me. But there was nothing. The elevator began its descent, but even as the doors closed, I could hear the whispers growing louder, the voices closing in on me. "Ryan, Ryan, you can't leave." I slammed my finger on the emergency stop button, but the elevator didn't stop. It just kept descending. And then the lights went out. For a long moment, I was trapped in complete darkness. The whispers were gone, but the silence was worse. It pressed in on me, suffocating me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My hands were clammy, my legs weak. I tried to force the doors open, but they wouldn't budge. I was trapped. Then I heard something. A slow, deliberate tapping. It was coming from above, from the shaft. It was the sound of something moving, something crawling down the walls. And it was coming for me. I don't remember how long I sat in that pitch-black elevator, but it felt like hours, each second stretching into an eternity. The silence around me was thick, smothering. I couldn't even hear my own heartbeat anymore. Only the faint sound of my labored breathing and the soft scraping noise from above. The thing, it was coming down the elevator shaft. The noise was slow, deliberate, like claws dragging across metal, growing louder with each passing second. I wanted to scream, but the terror had paralyzed me. My throat was dry, my mouth like sandpaper, but the sound continued. Closer, closer. I looked at the buttons. I tried pressing them all, up, down, emergency stop, anything to get the elevator to move, to get out. But nothing. The elevator remained stuck in place. I felt my skin crawl as the tapping grew louder, faster, more frantic. It was getting closer. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to move. I needed to do something. My hand gripped the door's emergency release latch, and with all my strength, I forced it open. The moment the doors cracked, a cold gust of air hit me, followed by a foul stench, something rotten and decaying, like old meat left to fester in the dark. I hesitated, heart pounding in my chest, but then I forced myself to step out into the dark corridor. The emergency lights flickered on, casting long, eerie shadows that twisted unnaturally across the walls. I stood there, motionless, straining to listen. The tapping had stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe it was gone, that I had escaped. But deep down, I knew better. It wasn't gone. It was waiting. I stepped cautiously down the hallway, the hospital around me now feeling like a maze. The walls were too close, the floors too quiet. I was beginning to doubt my sanity. My footsteps echoed too loudly in the empty corridors. Everything felt wrong. I took a turn, and that's when I saw it. The door to the old wing was wide open, the dim light from the hall spilling into the dark room beyond. And there, standing in the doorway, was the same figure I had seen before, the one in the ICU. But this time, it wasn't standing still. No, it was moving. Its long, twisted limbs crawled on the walls, like a spider, its body contorting in ways that weren't possible. It looked right at me. No eyes, just a black void staring through me, like it could see my very soul. "Ryan," it whispered, its voice deep and hollow, filled with a kind of hunger. "You've come back." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I felt like I was being crushed under the weight of its gaze. I tried to turn, to run, but my body wouldn't obey. I was frozen in place, my legs trembling beneath me. The thing crawled closer, its sharp nails scraping against the walls, its form growing larger, more menacing as it approached. It didn't walk like a person. It slithered, twisted, an abomination of nature. Its mouth opened wide, stretching impossibly far, and I heard the same growl, the same sound I had heard the night Mr. Thompson passed away. I didn't understand it. How could something like this exist? How could it be in this hospital, in this place? It wasn't human. It was something else. Something from the deepest corner of this earth. "You can't leave," it hissed. "You belong here with me." My heart raced, panic flooding my senses, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, my body moved. I turned and ran. I ran like I had never run before, my feet pounding against the floor as I tore through the hospital. I didn't stop, didn't think, just ran. The lights above flickered and buzzed, but I didn't care. I could hear its footsteps behind me now, the thing pursuing me, its movements growing faster, sharper, the sound of its claws scraping against the floor growing louder with each step. But there was no escape. No way out. I made it to the front doors, and to my horror, they were locked, sealed shut. There was no exit. No escape. I could feel its presence closing in on me, the shadows swallowing me whole, and in that moment, I knew that I was trapped. There was no way out of St. Jude's Hospital. It wasn't just a building. It was something else alive, and it had chosen me. It had marked me. I turned around, knowing it was behind me, but I didn't dare look. I couldn't. I could feel its cold breath on the back of my neck. "You are mine now," the thing whispered in my ear. And then everything went dark. "I'm here, aren't I? You're reading this because I survived. But I don't think I can leave now. Not truly. St. Jude's isn't just a hospital. It's a place where the lost are kept, where the broken are put to rest. And once you enter, it never lets you go. So remember this. If you ever find yourself in a hospital, in the dead of night, hearing whispers in the dark, or seeing shadows move when no one is there, run. Don't turn back, because it is always watching. I wish I could say I left that hospital. I wish I could say I found a way out, some kind of escape, but I didn't. That thing, whatever it was, has become part of me, and no matter how far I run, it follows. The worst part is, I can't remember the last time I had a real night's sleep. After that night, I was still working, if you can even call it that. I was assigned to shifts, to patient care, to the usual duties, but none of it felt real anymore. Nothing felt normal. I couldn't trust my own mind. The faces of the patients, their screams and whispered pleas, their eyes seem to follow me now. Some days, I swear I hear them calling my name from the dark corners of the hallways. I had become part of the hospital's twisted fabric, and it had made sure I wouldn't forget. It had twisted my mind until I no longer knew what was real. I couldn't tell if the things I saw were hallucinations or if I was still being hunted by that creature. It was my final shift at St. Jude's, or at least it was supposed to be. I had made up my mind. I was leaving. I couldn't take it anymore. The endless nights, the creeping dread, the things I couldn't explain. But something deep inside me knew that I couldn't just walk away. The hospital had already claimed me. It always claimed its own. It was nearing 3 a.m. again, the witching hour, and I was alone in the surgical ward, the last person still on the clock. The rest of the staff had already gone home, and I was left to watch over the empty rooms. But the hospital wasn't quiet. No, it was never quiet anymore. The sounds that echoed through the halls were different now. Personal, almost as if it knew I was there. The whispers had started again, but they weren't from the shadows. No, these whispers came from within the walls. I started hearing the scratching. Soft at first, then growing louder, closer. I looked around, but there was no one. No patients. No staff. Just me, and the darkened hallways stretching endlessly in every direction. I went to the control room, hoping the security cameras would offer me some kind of relief. Maybe seeing the empty halls on screen would make me feel less paranoid, less afraid. But when I looked at the monitors, I didn't see nothing. I saw everything. Each camera displayed something different, but they all had one thing in common. Shadows crawling along the walls, crawling along the ceilings. Figures twisting and shifting unnaturally, waiting for something. Waiting for me. I turned away from the monitors, breathing heavily, my body starting to tremble. My mind was playing tricks on me. I knew it. It had to be. But I couldn't deny what I saw. The things, they were here, and I wasn't gonna make it out alive. I grabbed my coat, made my way to the elevator, but the doors wouldn't open. Panic surged in me. I punched the button over and over, but the lights inside the elevator flickered and the doors remained stubbornly shut. A cold laugh echoed in my head, followed by the voice, that voice. "You can't leave," it whispered from somewhere deep within the hospital as though it had been with me all along. "You belong here." The lights flickered again, and suddenly the hallway around me was full. Figures in shadow, tall and monstrous, crawled out of the walls. They moved without purpose, their forms twisted and wrong. They didn't look like people, not anymore. Some had faces, but others had nothing, just voids where eyes should have been, mouths stretched too wide, distended and dripping with something dark. Their hands were elongated, claws that scraped against the floor with every step. I turned to run, but I couldn't. My legs wouldn't carry me. My body was frozen in place, unable to break free from the grip of the shadows that surrounded me. And then I saw it. The creature. The one from the ICU, from the old wing, from everywhere. It was standing at the far end of the hallway, its form looming, its face a black void. But now there was something worse. There were more of them. Other figures, each more grotesque than the last. They moved toward me, crawling, slithering, all at once. I could feel it, the cold presence. The thing that had followed me, hunted me, and now, it had claimed me. I tried to scream, but my voice was gone. I tried to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The shadows closed in, enveloping me like a suffocating fog. The last thing I saw was the creature's face, that endless black void staring into mine, its hollow eyes filled with hunger. And then, just like that, I was swallowed by the dark. I don't know how long it's been. Days? Weeks? Time doesn't matter anymore. I'm still here, still trapped, still waiting. I never got to leave St. Jude's. But I'm telling you this story now, hoping anyone will believe me. Because once you step inside, there's no getting out. There's no escape from St. Jude's Hospital. And if you're ever near a hospital late at night and you hear the whispering, don't look, don't listen, just leave. Because once it sees you, it never lets you go. I thought I understood what had happened. I thought I had grasped the true horror of St. Jude's Hospital. But I was wrong. There are things that are worse than death, worse than what I saw. And it's not just the creatures or the endless corridors. It's what happens to you when you stay too long. The whispers, they don't stop. The shadows, they don't fade. They're always there, always watching, waiting for the moment when you think you've escaped. You think you've gotten out? That you've outrun whatever it is that hunts you in the dark? You haven't. It's been, God, I don't even know how long. I'm not even sure if it's really me anymore. Sometimes I wake up and I swear I'm still there, still in that place, stuck in the bowels of that cursed building. But then I'll blink and I'm back in my apartment. At least, that's what I think it is. But nothing is what it seems anymore. It's been days since I last spoke to anyone. Days since I made contact with anyone outside that damn place. I'm starting to wonder if the real world is just a mirage, a lie. If I'm still in St. Jude's, in a corner where the shadows can creep into my mind. A few days ago, I received a visitor. I thought it was a dream. Or perhaps just the last shred of my sanity unraveling. But no. It was real. At least, I think it was. The knock at my door startled me loud, rapid, like someone was desperate to get in. When I opened it, I saw a man in a suit. He was tall, dark-haired, with a cold, professional demeanor. He didn't introduce himself right away. He just stood there, staring at me, like he already knew everything about me. "Ryan Miller?" he asked, his voice calm, detached. "Yes, what do you want?" I didn't trust him. Something about the way he looked at me, it made my skin crawl. "I'm from St. Jude's Hospital," he said, his expression unreadable. "I'm here to offer you a second chance. A second chance." I almost laughed. What did he mean by that? The only second chance I'd had was to survive long enough to leave, but leaving didn't feel like escaping. No, it felt like running from something far bigger than I could ever understand. "What are you talking about?" I asked, the suspicion in my voice evident. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped inside without waiting for me to invite him. He was so calm, so controlled, like this was all just another part of his routine. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up as he took a seat on my couch. St. Jude's doesn't let people leave. Not really. It never has. I froze. "What did you just say?" The man looked at me, his expression softening slightly, but not with kindness. It was more like pity. "We've been keeping track of you. You're one of the few who managed to get out, even if only temporarily. But the hospital, it's never done with you. It never lets go." My heart started pounding. "What do you want from me?" "You're not free," he said quietly. "Not yet. Not until you understand what happened and what's still waiting for you. You have a role to play. It needs you to return." I felt my stomach drop. His words were like ice in my veins. I wanted to scream, but my voice was caught in my throat. "I don't care what it wants," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've had enough. I'm done with St. Jude's." He looked at me with a cold smile, one that made me feel like a puppet in his hands. "That's not your choice, Ryan. It's never been your choice." He stood up and walked toward the door. As he reached for the handle, he turned to me one last time. "You'll be back. They always come back." And with that he left. Just like that. No more words, no more explanations. But as he walked away, I realized something. Something terrifying. I hadn't heard the whispering since he arrived. I hadn't heard it until now. The whispers started again, soft at first, then growing louder as though they were all around me. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew what it meant. It was calling me. It was summoning me back. And no matter how far I tried to run, no matter how many locks I put on my door, the shadows, the things in the dark would always find me. I wasn't free. Not now. Not ever. And when I looked out the window, through the glass, the last thing I saw was a figure standing in the distance, watching me. And it was smiling. I thought I could escape. I thought I had broken free. But there's no breaking free from St. Jude's Hospital. Once it has you, once it marks you, you'll never leave. It will always be there, watching, waiting. And when the time comes, it will take you back. I never thought I'd be writing again. But here I am. The whispers are louder now. They've been gnawing at my mind for days, echoing in my head when I wake up, when I try to sleep, when I step out of my door. I can't escape them. I can't escape it. I've tried everything. I've called the police. I've tried therapy. I've even moved halfway across the country. But no matter where I go, the shadow of St. Jude's follows me. It's always there, just out of sight, waiting for the moment when I let my guard down. The man in the suit, the one who came to my apartment, he wasn't just a messenger. He was an agent, a recruiter, maybe. He was part of something much larger than me, part of something much older than any of us. I didn't understand it at first, but now I do. I know what they're doing, what they've been doing for years. St. Jude's is not just a hospital. It's a place where they collect people, those whose minds are broken, whose souls are fractured, and those like me who somehow got out. But I didn't get out. Not really. I've been back. I don't remember how. One moment I was in my apartment, convinced that I had escaped the horrors of that place. The next, I was back in the sterile halls. The dim lighting. The scent of antiseptic that was like a reminder of everything wrong in this world. And the worst part? I wasn't alone. I was in a room, just a simple room, but the walls were covered with monitors, screens showing faces I didn't recognize. People. Patients, I assumed. But they were different. Their eyes were empty, staring into the camera, their mouths slightly open like they were gasping for air, trying to scream but unable to make a sound. And there, in the corner of the room, a figure stood, cloaked in shadows. I could barely make out its shape, but I knew that it was the same thing that had been following me. The thing I saw at the hospital. The one that had been waiting for me. It spoke, but not with words. No, it didn't need words. It didn't need to say anything. I could hear its voice in my mind. You've come back. I screamed, I tried to run, but my body wouldn't move. I couldn't escape. It was everywhere. In my mind, in my body, in my very soul. I felt it crawling beneath my skin, creeping into every thought I had. It was like it knew me. It knew my fears. It knew my weaknesses. And that's when it hit me. St. Jude's doesn't just take people's bodies. It doesn't just twist them into grotesque forms. No, it takes your mind. It bends it, twists it, shapes it into something that will always obey. And once you're part of it, you can never truly leave. I don't know how I got out of that room. Maybe it was another hallucination. Maybe I just dreamed it all. But now, I'm starting to wonder if what I'm seeing right now is real, or if I'm still trapped in that hospital. I can feel it again, the pull, the weight of it, the thing that's been watching me from the corner of every room. The whispering that grows louder with every breath I take. It never stops. And every time I try to push it away, to forget it, to live a normal life, the hospital is there waiting for me to slip up, waiting for the moment when I can't resist any longer. The figure, the shadow, it's here, again. It's standing outside my window, just out of sight. I can't look. I can't let it in. I don't know how much longer I can keep running. The truth is, it's not just St. Jude's that I'm running from anymore. It's everything. The memory of that place, the feeling that I'll never be able to outrun it, the knowledge that it's not just in my past, it's my future. I have to go back. I don't want to, but I know it's the only way. I know that no matter how far I run, no matter how many times I tell myself I'm free, it's still out there. It is still out there, waiting for me to return to the place I thought I had left behind. And when I go back, I know what will happen. The hospital will take me. It will take my mind, my soul, my very existence. But maybe, just maybe, I can fight it. I can destroy it. I hope. If I don't make it back, if you ever hear my name again in the whispers of the dark, remember, don't go near St. Jude's. Don't follow the whispers. Don't listen to the promises. Because once it gets you, once it marks you, you will never leave. St. Jude's will always find you. I should have never gone back. I should have stayed far, far away from that hospital, but I didn't have a choice. You see, the thing about St. Jude's is that once it has you, once it knows you, it doesn't let go. No matter how far you run, no matter how hard you try to forget, you will always return. It calls to you. It haunts your every waking moment, and the more you resist, the stronger the pull becomes. I don't even remember how I found my way back there. I was walking down a street, lost in thought, and when I looked up, I was standing in front of the hospital. It was like some invisible force had drawn me in, like I had been led there without even realizing it. The building loomed over me, its windows dark and empty, but I knew that the shadows were still alive inside. Waiting. I should have turned around, should have run. But I couldn't. I couldn't tear myself away from the door, from the darkness inside. So I stepped inside, my heart pounding, my mind screaming at me to leave. It was just as I remembered. The stale air, the flickering lights, the sterile smell that never quite left. But this time, something was different. This time, the silence wasn't comforting, it was suffocating. It was as though the hospital itself was alive, watching me, waiting for the right moment to claim me again. I walked down the hall, my footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Every door was closed, every room locked. But I could still hear it. The whispers. Soft at first, but growing louder, closer, until they seemed to be coming from all directions. Ryan. Ryan, I froze. I could feel it, the presence behind me, closing in. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I knew that if I did, I would see something I wasn't meant to see. Something that would destroy me. And then I heard it. The scrape of nails against the floor, soft and deliberate, like someone or something was crawling toward me. I backed away slowly, but my feet felt heavy, as though the hospital itself was holding me in place, trapping me. The door to the ICU was open. I don't remember opening it. I don't even remember walking toward it. But I found myself standing there, looking inside, my heart racing. The lights were dim, the machines beeping softly in the background, but there was no one in the room. Except for the figure standing by the bed. It was him. The thing. The one that had been following me all this time. It wasn't human anymore. It had never been human. Its body was twisted, grotesque, crawling along the walls. Its limbs contorted in ways that defied nature. Its face was a black void, featureless, except for the deep, hollow eyes that seemed to stare into my very soul. You came back. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But my body refused to obey. I was frozen, paralyzed by the thing's presence, its power. Couldn't look away. Couldn't move. All I could do was listen to its voice, feel its cold breath against my skin, as it whispered things I couldn't understand. And then I felt it, a sharp pain, like something digging into my chest. I looked down and saw it, dark, jagged lines forming across my skin, like burn marks or tattoos, but worse, they spread across my arms, my legs, my chest, until they consumed my entire body. The mark of St. Jude's. I had never truly escaped. I had been marked from the moment I stepped into that hospital. It had never let me go. And now it had claimed me completely. You are mine now, Ryan. You will never leave. The words echoed in my mind, and I felt my knees buckle. I fell to the floor, unable to move, unable to scream. The thing watched me with its empty eyes as I felt myself being pulled into the darkness. But before I succumbed, before the darkness swallowed me whole, I heard something faint at first, but growing louder. The voices. The whispers. They were all around me. All of them. Every patient that had ever disappeared, every soul that had ever been trapped inside St. Jude's. They were speaking to me, reaching out from the void. And then I understood. St. Jude's wasn't just a hospital. It was a place of containment. A place where the souls of the lost were kept, locked away in a never-ending cycle of torment. Once you entered, you could never truly leave. The hospital would always find a way to pull you back. And those who thought they escaped, they were marked. And they would return just like I did. I don't know how much time has passed since that moment. I don't know if I'm still alive or if I'm already one of the lost souls in the hospital's endless halls. All I know is this: if you ever hear the whispers, if you ever feel the cold breath on your neck or see the shadows moving in the corner of your eye, run. Because St. Jude's doesn't just take your body. It takes your soul. And once it has you, you will never escape. I don't know how much longer I can hold on to what's left of myself. The hospital has taken everything, my mind, my will, my sense of reality. But it's not enough. It wants more. It always wants more. And I can feel it creeping deeper, clawing into the very core of me. No matter how hard I try to resist, it pulls me further into its endless depths. The mark on my skin still burns. A constant reminder of the pact I never made. The fate I never chose. It pulses with every beat of my heart. And it's as if the hospital itself is speaking through it. I hear the whispers now in my bones, in my blood, everywhere. It doesn't stop. It never stops. Every night, I close my eyes, hoping for some relief. But when I open them, I'm always back there. Back in the same place. The same hallway. The thing is, I don't know if this is real anymore. I've tried to leave. I've tried every door, every exit. But no matter how far I walk, no matter how many turns I make, I always end up in the same hallway. It stretches on forever, twisting, turning, as if the building itself is alive. The walls move, change, always shifting, always leading me back to the center of it all. And the worst part? I can hear them. The voices. They're not just whispers anymore. They've grown louder, more insistent. Sometimes they're a chorus of screams. Other times they're just static, like 1,000 conversations all happening at once, all overlapping, all broken. And I know deep down they're the souls trapped here, the ones who never made it out, the ones who are still trapped in the void, waiting for someone to listen, waiting for someone to understand their pain. I've seen things, horrible, twisted things, things that no one should ever have to see. The figures that crawl on the walls, the ones with their mouths sewn shut, their eyes hollow and dark, walking toward me, always toward me. Sometimes they speak, sometimes they just stare. But either way, it's always the same, nothing human. And I know now that they want me to join them. They want me to become one of them, to be another lost soul, another echo in the halls of St. Jude's. They've been trying to break me down, to turn me into one of them, but I can't let go. Not yet. I thought I had found a way out. One night, after what felt like hours of wandering, I stumbled upon a door. One that wasn't locked, one that felt different, like it was calling to me. I opened it, my heart racing, praying for escape. But all I found was a room filled with monitors, the same sterile hospital lights overhead, buzzing like they were alive. On the screens I saw images, faces, some familiar, some not, but they were all in pain. I could see their eyes, wide with fear, wide with understanding. And then I saw myself. There I was, trapped in the screen, staring back at me, just as helpless as the rest of them. My own face twisted in terror, my eyes wide and empty, just like theirs. I've tried to tear myself away from the room, from the screens, but I can't. The hospital keeps pulling me back. The mark on my skin burns hotter now, searing into me like it's trying to brand me, to keep me here forever. I know the truth now. St. Jude's isn't just a place. It's a cycle. It's not just an institution. It's a prison. A place designed to trap souls. And once you step inside, once you accept its invitation, no matter how you try to fight it, you are part of it. You are bound by its walls, by its dark corridors, by its endless hunger. I don't know how much longer I can keep writing. The shadows are closing in again. The figures are crawling toward me. The whispers are louder than ever. They're calling my name. I'm starting to wonder if this is all just part of the hospital's plan. To keep me trapped here, writing down my fears, my thoughts, until I become just another part of the story. Another soul that fades into the darkness, lost to time. But maybe this will help you. Maybe, just maybe, if you're reading this, you'll understand. Whatever you do, don't go to St. Jude's. Don't listen to the whispers. Don't follow the shadow that calls your name in the dark. Because once you enter, once you feel the pull, you'll never be free. You'll never escape. Jude's will always find you. Always. I didn't want to keep writing. I didn't want to tell anyone else. But I have no choice now. The hospital, it's forcing me to. Every time I try to stop, every time I think I've finally reached the end of this nightmare, the walls start closing in again. And I can feel it, the pull, the darkness. It's not just in the hospital anymore. It's everywhere. It's in my bones, in my blood, it's in the very air I breathe. I can't escape. Not now. But I'll try to tell you one last time. Maybe this is the only way. Maybe if you hear my story, it'll save you. Maybe if I warn you, if you understand the truth, then you can avoid the fate I found. I thought I knew what it meant to be lost. I thought I understood what it meant to be trapped in a place that feeds off your fear. But I was wrong. It's not just the fear. It's not just the darkness. St. Jude's takes something much worse. It takes your identity. Your very soul. After that night, when I saw my face on the monitor, I began to realize something. Something horrible. St. Jude's doesn't just trap you in its halls. It replaces you. It doesn't want to just break you. It wants to erase you. Takes everything you are and makes you a part of the hospital, a part of its infrastructure. I've seen it happen to others. I've seen it happen to people who were just like me. People who thought they could fight it. But no one can fight it. I thought maybe if I stayed in one place long enough, if I stopped moving, it would finally let me go. But that's the trap. The waiting. The stillness. The moment you stop running, the moment you stop fighting, it begins. And that's when I saw it again. I was sitting in my apartment, just staring out the window, the world outside looking so normal. The streetlights flickering, the sound of cars passing by. It almost felt like I could live a normal life again. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The one that gnaws at you. The one that tells you deep inside that nothing is real anymore. Not when you've been touched by St. Jude's. And then I saw the shadow. It wasn't outside my window. It wasn't on the street. It was in my reflection. In the glass. For a moment, I thought it was just a trick of the light. But I knew better. The shadow was moving. It wasn't mine. It was something else. I turned away, but the shadow didn't leave. It stayed following me no matter where I went. Every corner I turned, every room I entered, it was there, lurking just behind me. I went to the door. I had to leave, but the door wouldn't open. The lock was stuck. I tried to break it to get out, but I couldn't. The more I pulled, the harder the door pushed back. And then I heard it. The sound of scraping, of nails dragging across metal. It was coming from behind me, from the walls, from the very floor itself. I turned around slowly, knowing what I would see. And there, in the corner of the room, was a door. I hadn't noticed it before, but it was there now. And it was calling me. It was the final door. The last door I hadn't opened. The one I had been avoiding. I didn't want to go near it, but I couldn't stop myself. Something inside me, the mark, the shadow, the hospital, it was pushing me toward it. The moment I touched the handle, I felt it. Cold rush of air. The smell of antiseptic. The oppressive weight of the building pressing in on me. I knew what would happen if I opened it. I knew what awaited me on the other side. But I opened it anyway, and there it was. St. Jude's. In all its terrifying, suffocating glory. I was back, but I was different now. I wasn't the same person who had entered the hospital the first time. I wasn't the same person who had wandered the halls, who had tried to escape. The hospital had changed me. I could feel it as soon as I stepped inside. The walls whispered my name. The hallways bent and shifted around me, like they were alive. And the thing that had been chasing me, the thing that had waited for me, it was here, too. It was waiting in the shadows, its hollow eyes following me, its twisted limbs reaching for me. It spoke, but not with words. It spoke in feelings, in emotions that pierced my chest like 1,000 needles. "You can't run anymore," it whispered. "You've already become part of us." I could feel it then. The change. The mark on my skin burned hotter, spreading like wildfire through my veins until it was the only thing I could feel. I could feel my identity slipping away piece by piece. My memories were fading. My thoughts were becoming their thoughts. And then I understood. The final part of the cycle. St. Jude's doesn't just trap you in its halls. It becomes you. I'm not Ryan Miller anymore. I'm not the person who stepped into this place. I am now a part of it. A part of the darkness. A part of the thing that watches. I will never leave. And neither will you. I'm not sure when it happened. Was it when the door closed behind me? Was it when the walls started to move, to shift around me like they were closing in on something that wasn't supposed to be there? Or was it when I felt the mark finally settle deep into my skin, wrapping itself around my very soul? I don't know, but I understand now. I understand what St. Jude's truly is. It's not just a hospital. It's not just a place of torment, of lost souls and dark corridors. No, St. Jude's is something alive. It feeds on us, on our fear, our memories, our very essence. It changes us. It replaces us. It turns us into something that belongs to it. I can feel it like an endless pull, something drawing me deeper into its depths. And it's not just the walls that shift. I can feel myself shifting too. Every step I take, every breath I draw, I can feel the hospital twisting me, reshaping me into something new, something that is no longer me, but a part of it. I see the others now. I see the ones who came before me, the ones who thought they could escape. They are the ones that fill the halls. Their faces, their eyes. They're empty now, hollow. Their bodies are twisted, contorted into grotesque shapes. But the worst part is that they're still here. They still walk the halls just like I do. They're waiting. They're trapped just like me. And now I'm starting to feel it too. That same hollowness. That same emptiness. I see the figure in the distance again. The one that watches me. It moves slowly toward me. Its face hidden in the shadows. Its limbs long and unnatural. It's always watching, waiting for me to slip. Waiting for me to understand what I've become. But I understand now. I've become the keeper. I've become part of the hospital. I am part of the cycle, and now it's my job to keep the others in line. The ones who think they can escape. The ones who think they can outrun the darkness. I'm the one who watches now. I'm the one who guides them back into the fold. They don't know it yet, but they will. They always do. I hear them now, the new ones. The ones who thought they were safe. They're here, walking the halls, trying to find a way out. But they won't. I won't let them. I'm the keeper of the lost souls now. And St. Jude's has claimed me, body and soul. It has made me its own. And I will make sure no one ever leaves. I thought I knew what I was becoming. I thought I had accepted the inevitable, that I was just another lost soul trapped in St. Jude's. But I was wrong. What I'm becoming now, it's worse than anything I could have imagined. I can feel it deep within me, twisting, reshaping me into something that is no longer human. The mark on my skin has started to shift, to move. It no longer feels like a simple burn, but like something alive, growing beneath my flesh. It pulses with the rhythm of the hospital itself, and when I close my eyes, I can hear it, the sound of the walls breathing, like the building is alive. It's watching me and it's watching them, the new arrivals. The whispers have grown louder. They're no longer just voices in the dark, but a constant hum that fills my mind, fills my thoughts, until I can barely distinguish them from my own. They've become part of me, and the worst part? I can't stop it. I can't stop hearing the stories, the endless, tragic stories of those who walked into St. Jude's, thinking they were just passing through, never realizing that the building had already claimed them. I walk through the halls now not as a victim, but as a guide, a keeper of the lost. My footsteps echo in the empty corridors, and I can feel the eyes of the others on me. They're watching, waiting for the moment when I let my guard down, when I allow them to feel the terror of what they've become. But I don't let them. I've learned to control it. I've learned to feed the fear, to make them see the walls close in on them, to make them feel the weight of the darkness. The newcomers, they always come. And I wait for them. I watch them stumble through the hospital, lost, confused, desperate to find an exit that doesn't exist. And they never do. I make sure of that. But recently, something's changed. There's a new presence in the hospital. It's different from the others. It doesn't feel like a soul lost in the cycle. No, this one feels aware. It's almost as if it knows exactly what's happening. It knows what St. Jude's really is. And it's been following me. I don't know who it is. I don't know how it's possible. But every time I turn a corner, I feel it behind me. A set of footsteps that matches mine. A shadow that moves just out of sight. At first, I thought it was just another illusion, another figment of the hospital's twisted mind. But it's not. I know it. I can feel it. And it's getting closer. The footsteps echo louder now. They follow me down the hallways, through the rooms, up the stairs, and back again. I can't escape them. They're always there, just behind me, just out of reach. But every time I stop, every time I pause for a moment, I can feel it. It's right there, just beyond the shadows. I'm starting to panic. I thought I was in control, that I had become part of the system, part of the hospital's endless cycle. But now I feel like I'm being hunted. Like I'm no longer the one in charge. I can't shake the feeling that the newcomer is getting closer. That this presence, whoever it is, knows exactly what I've become, and it's coming for me. I don't know what it wants, but I can't outrun it. Not anymore. The footsteps are getting louder. The shadow is moving faster, closing in on me. I'm beginning to wonder if this is it. If this is the end. But then again, maybe I never had a beginning. Maybe I've always been part of St. Jude's. I turn a corner. I stop. I listen. The footsteps are right behind me now, and I feel a chill. I'm not the one watching anymore. I'm the one being watched. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. It's been days, weeks, maybe even months. Time doesn't exist in St. Jude's anymore. The walls don't follow the logic of the world I once knew. The days blur together. Every step I take, every breath I draw, feels like I'm sinking deeper, slipping further into the endless darkness. And the footsteps, they're still there. Always there. The shadow it is close now. Too close. Every time I turn around, I feel its presence, like cold fingers brushing the back of my neck. It's not human, not like the others who wander the halls. It's something different. Something with purpose. I've started to wonder if it's been watching me for longer than I thought, if it's been there all along, just waiting for the moment when I finally realize what I've become. Because I can feel it now. The change. It's not just the mark, not just the burning, twisting sensation in my skin. No, this is something deeper, something more profound. I can feel my mind slipping, like the hospital itself is slowly erasing who I was, shaping me into something new. Something that belongs to St. Jude's. And I'm afraid. I'm terrified that I'm losing myself, that I'm becoming just another part of this place, another hollow face wandering the endless hallways. Another keeper, another lost soul. But I can't let that happen. Not yet. I have to find out what this shadow wants. I have to understand why it's been following me, why it's been stalking me through every corridor, waiting in the dark. I'm not sure if I can defeat it, if I can even survive whatever it has planned for me, but I have to try. I can't let this be the end. The footsteps are louder now, the sound of them echoing through the hallways like a death march. I know it's close. I know it's here. I make my way through the hospital, through the maze of rooms and corridors that twist and warp in ways that defy logic. I know these halls. I've walked them more times than I can count. But tonight, they feel different. There's something wrong. The air is thick, suffocating. And the whispering, it's louder. Closer. I walk faster, my breath quickening, until I finally reach the old wing. The door is open, just a crack. I don't know why I'm drawn to it, but I know I have to go inside. I step through the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The room is dark, too dark. There's something in the shadows, something moving. I don't want to look. I don't want to see what's waiting for me. But I can't turn away. And then I see it. The shadow. It's not just a shadow anymore. It's real. It has shape form. It moves toward me and I feel it in my bones, in my blood. This is it. This is what I've been running from. This is what's been waiting for me. It speaks, but not in words. It doesn't need to. I can hear its voice inside my mind, the low, guttural hum of it, like a whisper in the deepest part of my soul. You're not meant to be here, it says, but you're here anyway. The coldness of its presence wraps around me, suffocating me. I can feel my limbs going numb, my mind starting to slip. The walls close in. The hospital is alive. And it's not just watching me anymore. It's consuming me. The shadow reaches out. I try to move, to run, but I can't. I can't escape it. I can't escape St. Jude's. And then, in the silence, I hear the final whisper. A voice that's not mine, but that I know all too well. The voice of the hospital, the voice of the cycle, the voice of the thing that has been calling to me all this time. You will never leave. And in that moment, I understand. There is no escape. There never was. St. Jude's doesn't just take you. It becomes you. I am now part of it. Part of its endless cycle. A keeper, a watcher just like the others. The shadow has claimed me. The mark has taken root. And I am lost to the hospital forever. The doors of St. Jude's close behind me. The whispers fade. But I will never leave. I finally come to terms with it. There's no escape. Not now. Not ever. I thought I could fight it. I thought that if I understood what was happening, if I could just make sense of the madness, I could break free. But St. Jude's doesn't work like that. You don't escape. You don't fight. You just become. The hospital swallows you whole, reshaping you into one of its own, bending your mind until there's nothing left but the endless, unyielding pull of its dark halls. I thought I was running from the hospital. I thought I could outrun it, but I was wrong. The hospital is inside me now. It's in my bones. It's in my soul. Every hallway, every corner, every shadow, I'm trapped in them, and I always will be. I can't see the faces of the others anymore. The ones who were lost, the ones who thought they could escape too. They've all become a part of the hospital now, their hollow eyes staring into the endless darkness. And now I'm one of them. I can feel it. I can hear their whispers in my mind. They're all around me, walking the same halls, watching me, waiting for me to join them, to forget who I once was. But I don't need to remember anymore, because I am St. Jude's. The mark on my skin burns no longer. It is a part of me, a constant presence that pulses in time with the hospital's heartbeat. The walls breathe, they whisper, they guide me. The cycle has turned, and now I am the keeper, the one who waits, the one who leads the new arrivals into their torment. I've become the thing that I once feared. And when they come, when the new souls arrive, thinking they can escape, I will be waiting. I will guide them. I will watch them as they lose themselves in the maze of halls. I will make sure they understand the truth. That there is no escape from St. Jude's. No one ever leaves. Because once you've been marked, once the hospital has claimed you, you will never walk out again. I am not Ryan Miller anymore. I am just another whisper. Another shadow. Another lost soul trapped in the endless cycle. But the truth is, I was never meant to escape. I was never meant to be free. I was always meant to be part of St. Jude's. And now I am. Forever.